4. The Inspector General. The tall, white-haired old man, who preferred to be known as Pop, strolled slowly through the festival site. He wore paint-stained overalls and a battered cloth cap, and he carried several pots of paint and a big paintbrush. It was like a pass signed by old Adolf himself, he thought, or better still, a cloak of invisibility. He was a painter, off to paint something. Stood to reason, didn't it? Nodding to a passing Free-Corps patrolman, the old man climbed through the gap in the fence and walked along the riverbank. He was making for the place where some very strange things had been happening. A man had gone into the river, and a man and a girl had suddenly appeared from nowhere. Something else had appeared as well, an odd-looking blue police box, and there it was. Pop marched up to it and tried the door. Locked. He put his hand on the side and felt a warmth, a faint hum of power. It was as if the thing were alive. He stood and looked at it for a while. He needed an excuse to hang around. He decided to paint the box white. He took his brush from the pot and slapped a broad streak of white paint on the side. The paint just fell away. He tried again. The same thing happened. The box simply repelled, rejected the paint. Pop scratched his head under the cap and moved away. There was a stretch of riverside railing nearby, newly painted black and red in honour of the festival. Black and red were Nazi colours, and he decided that the fence would look better in red, white and blue. He set to work. For quite a long while nothing happened. Then a Free-Corps lorry came jolting across the site from the other side. A Free-Corps patrol under the command of a sergeant jumped down from the lorry and surrounded the blue box. They tried the door. It was locked. They tried to smash the door down. It refused to smash. For a while, they stood round in a circle, arguing furiously. Then they rigged up a block and tackle, and under the command of the cursing sergeant, they heaved the blue box, which seemed to be astonishingly heavy, onto the back of the lorry. They lashed it down, jumped onto the lorry, and drove away. For a time, things were quiet again. Pop painted peacefully on. Then a man and a girl came hurrying along the path. They stopped at the spot where the box had been. They boggled. They too started arguing. Pop went placidly on with his painting. The doctor stared at the spot where the TARDIS wasn't, rubbing his chin. "Agley is the word, I think, Ace." "Come again, Professor?" "Agley. What the best laid plans of mice and men gang aft, if you remember." "It's the TARDIS that's ganged. Gone. I mean, where is it?" "Well, it isn't here." "Brilliant, Professor. So someone's moved it. Even more amazing. So all we need to know is who and where to. How do we discover that?" "By a brilliant new scientific method," said the doctor. "It's called asking someone." He looked round and saw a tall, cloth-capped, overalled old man painting a section of railing not far away. The doctor strode over. "Been here long, mate." "Who wants to know?" "Festival admin," announced the doctor. "Exhibit gone missing." "Well, I ain't got it." "Police box of the future, big blue job. Seen it?" "They took it away." "I gathered that." "Who did?" "Lot of them. Lot of them Free-Corps lad came with a lorry, hoisted it on board and made off." "Another cock-up," said the doctor cheerfully. "Thanks, Pop. I'll sort it." "You want to watch they don't sort you out. Nasty lot, them Free-Corps. Still, you know that, don't you?" "Do I?" "Well, they nicked you earlier on, didn't they? Now here you are, large as life, asking about blue boxes." "It was all a misunderstanding," said the doctor. "I was helping them with their inquiries." The old man went on painting. "There's a lot of misunderstanding about these days." "I know," said the doctor. He looked hard at the old man. "Somebody misunderstood himself right into the river this morning." "That right?" The doctor nodded. I was there. He paused. So were you, weren't you? If you fancy a cuppa later on, said the old man, try Ma Baker's caff under the arches. Say Pop sent you. In quite a different voice he added, we provide rather a decent brew-up, actually. A cut above this ersatz stuff. Touching his cap to Ace, he picked up his paint pots and brush and strolled away. What was all that about? Asked Ace. Oh, I'm not sure, said the doctor thoughtfully. But I rather think we may have made contact with the resistance. He just happened to be standing there. I doubt there's any just happened about it. He was waiting to see if anyone turned up looking for the TARDIS. How do you know? That stretch of railings had already been painted perfectly well when we were here earlier, said the doctor. It really didn't need painting again. And did you see what colours he was painting it? Besides, I saw him when that chap went into the river. I rather think he was the one who stabbed him. Ace rubbed her eyes. So much has happened I'd almost forgotten him. So had I, admitted the doctor. Ace, I'm a fool. He began searching frantically through his pockets, eventually coming up with the black leather folder the dying man had given him. He opened it and studied the gold swastika badge, noticing for the first time the lettering embossed under the badge. He read it aloud. Reich Inspector General. Sounds important, said Ace. It was vitally important to him, even when he was dying. And he was important too, important enough for the resistance to assassinate him right here at the festival. It's worth a gamble. The doctor closed the folder and put it back in his pocket. And this might just be our ace in the hole, if you'll pardon the expression. Come on, he said off down the path. Ace hurried after him. Where to? Back to the Free Corps HQ, said the doctor. I hope the car's still waiting. What was that about gambling? Asked Ace suspiciously. You know what you're gambling with, don't you? Our lives! Obsessed with his latest scheme, the doctor didn't even reply. The car was still parked by the gate, and this time the chauffeur obeyed without question when the doctor ordered him to take them back to the Savoy. As they drove out of the gate, the driver had to pull aside sharply as an army lorry came rocketing through. It was packed with Free Corps troops, and sitting beside the driver in the cab was a white-faced and furious figure. Ace nudged the doctor. Did you see who that was? The doctor nodded. After his escaped prisoners, no doubt. The right move, of course, but just a little mistimed. The desk clerk at the hotel had been having a difficult day. First, Lieutenant Hemmings had positively burst into the foyer looking disgracefully dishevelled and demanded news of a man and a girl he had brought in earlier. When the clerk told him they had just left in an official car, he'd seemed most put out. After saying a number of most ungentlemanly things, Lieutenant Hemmings had stormed out again. Now the whole place was in an uproar because General Strasser, the commanding officer, together with his whole entourage of staff officers, was just about to set off for a tour of the festival. Apparently, there was some problem about his car, and another was being found. Once they'd all gone, maybe he'd have some peace and quiet. Suddenly he saw the man and girl Lieutenant Hemmings had been after marching back into the hotel. To the clerk's horror, the man strode straight up to the desk and fixed him with a cold grey stare. I wish to see the commanding officer of the British Freikorps immediately. The desk clerk looked scornfully down his aristocratic nose. I'm afraid that won't be possible. The man lowered his voice to a sinister whisper. For your sake, young man, it had better be possible. Or perhaps you fancy a trip to the continent in the Volunteer Labour Corps. Nice, healthy outdoor work, you know. The clerk recoiled. I assure you, sir, it really isn't possible. General Strasser is just about to leave the hotel on a tour of the festival site. There he comes now. He pointed to a large, portly man in the uniform of an SS general coming down the staircase, surrounded by an entourage of colonels, captains and lieutenants. As the general reached the bottom of the staircase, the stranger marched up to him and clicked his heels. General Strasser! The general came to a halt, His officers grouped round him protectively. "Yes? I must speak with you immediately." The captain stepped forward. "The general is busy. Make an appointment with his office, possibly in a week or two." Ignoring him, the stranger fixed the general with his steely grey stare. "Immediately, if you please, General. My business is extremely urgent." Impressed by the incisive manner, the general said uneasily, "And the nature of this urgent business?" "It concerns the security of the Reich." The stranger produced a black leather folder, gave the general a quick glimpse of a gold badge, closed the folder, and put it away. The effect was amazing. The general came to attention and clicked his heels in response. "My time, of course, is at your disposal, Herr." He raised his eyebrows interrogatively. "You may address me as the doctor." "Herr Doctor," continued the general, "but I was just about to leave for a tour of the festival site. As a matter of fact, I'm late already. My car went missing." "It would not be advisable to visit the festival at present," snapped the doctor. "At the moment, a hunt is taking place for 2 dangerous prisoners who have just escaped from your headquarters." The general smiled. "Nonsense, Herr Doctor. Prisoners in my custody do not escape." He looked at his officers. "Do they, gentlemen?" There was a stirring at the edge of the group. A lieutenant whispered to a captain, who whispered to a major, who whispered to a colonel. "Well, do they?" snapped the general. The colonel cleared his throat. "It appears, General, that 2 prisoners were brought in earlier by Lieutenant Hemmings. They subsequently escaped, and Lieutenant Hemmings has taken a detachment to the festival site in order to search for them." "Why was I not told?" bellowed the general. He controlled himself with an effort. "It appears, Herr Doctor, that you are rather better informed about events in my headquarters than I am myself." The doctor gave him a sinister smile. "It is my business to be well informed." The general turned to an aide. "Inform the festival authorities that my visit is postponed. Inform me immediately, if you would be so kind, when the escaped prisoners are recaptured. There must be a full investigation. Send Lieutenant Hemmings to me the moment he returns." There was a flurry of salutes and heel-clicking, and the general said, "If you will be good enough to accompany me, Herr Doctor." As the doctor moved forward, the girl came to join him. The general raised his eyebrows. "And this young lady is my personal assistant," said the doctor. "She accompanies me at all times." "Natürlich," murmured the general. "Na, das Fräulein." He clicked his heels and bowed, and all the colonels, and the majors, and the captains, and the lieutenants did the same. Ace was quietly seething as she followed the doctor and the general up the stairs. She knew quite well what they had all been thinking. If the doctor, or anyone else for that matter, thought she was going to be relegated to the status of attendant bimbo, they had another think coming. The general led them to a luxurious suite of rooms overlooking the river. Dismissing his entourage, he settled the doctor and Ace in comfortable armchairs and sat behind an ornate 18th century desk. "Well, this is quite an honour," he said. "There have been rumours of a distinguished visitor for some time, but I must confess I didn't expect Reich Inspector General." The doctor produced another of his sinister smiles. "No one expects the Reich Inspector General." "Oh, quite so," said the general hurriedly. "One announces a visit. Everything is prepared for one's arrival. The administrative dust is swept under the carpet. An unexpected descent, on the other hand, can usually be relied upon to produce a few surprises." "Like 2 members of the Free Corps bullying a storekeeper at the festival and attempting to extort money," said Ace, doing her best to match the doctor's sinister manner. "I take it that is not part of their official duties?" The doctor put his fingers together and gazed at the decorated ceiling. "Ah, yes, thank you for reminding me, Fraulein. The names were Harris and Brady, General London Unit 4. I sent them back to their units under arrest." He looked severely at the general. Incidents of this kind may seem trivial, but they help to foment unrest among the civilian population, and unrest is the breeding ground for resistance. It is necessary that those representing the Third Reich conduct themselves with the utmost correctness at all times. The general made a note. I will check up on the matter immediately. You will understand, Herr Reichinspector. The doctor raised a finger and shook his head. Herr Doctor, that is, said the general hurriedly. When one recruits from the native population as we do, it's hard to find the best type of men, particularly in the lower ranks. We have some very fine English officers, however. Like Lieutenant Hemmings, said Ace. The doctor raised his hand. We shall come to Lieutenant Hemmings in a moment. There are far more serious matters to discuss, such as the British resistance movement. The general smiled confidently, leaning back in his chair. I don't know what kind of rumours you have been hearing in Berlin, Herr Doctor, but the so-called British resistance movement scarcely exists. A handful of ragged fanatics cowering in the ruins, the tattered remains of Colonel Gubbin's stay-behind units. Believe me, they are no real problem. Indeed, said the doctor icily. He leaned forward, staring hard at the general. Then permit me to inform you, Herr General, that my arrival may have been unexpected to you, but it was by no means a surprise to the British resistance. They were waiting for me, and they tried to kill me a few minutes after I arrived on the festival site. This is shocking, unheard of, said the general. The attempt was a failure? The doctor sighed. Obviously. Yes, of course, forgive me. May I inquire how you so fortunately escaped? I killed the would-be assassin with his own knife and threw the body into the river, said the doctor casually. No doubt it will emerge in time. The general rose and began pacing about the room. I am shocked, horrified that such a thing could happen in my jurisdiction. I cannot sufficiently apologize, and as for what they will say in Berlin, Berlin does not need to know, said the doctor. At least, not necessarily. The general stopped his pacing, a gleam of hope in his eye. I don't understand, Herr Doctor. The doctor said confidently, It is my belief that the local problems are best solved at the local level. If I send back a report that the Free Corps is out of control and London riddled with resistance activity, well, you can imagine how unfortunate would be the consequences. I can indeed, said the general. He shuddered. But, said the doctor meaningfully, if you and I work together to solve these difficulties, if I can send back a report that the Free Corps is a model force and that the resistance activity has been eliminated, how much more uplifting for me, for you, and for our glorious Reich. Indeed, yes, said the general. You are a man of great and noble understanding, Herr Doctor. The doctor looked sternly at him. However, such a solution will require your fullest, unreserved cooperation, Herr General. Anything, said the general. You have only to ask. I shall require papers and passes for myself and my assistant. We must be allowed to go anywhere and see everything. I shall need research facilities, accommodation, transport. Anything, said the general again. The resources of occupied Britain are at your command. He picked up his pencil. In what name should your pass be made out? The doctor considered. Schmidt, he said. Herr Dr. Johann Schmidt. And the young lady? Fraulein Dorothy Schmidt, my niece. Naturally, murmured the general, making a note of the names. There was a knock at the door. The general frowned. I said I was not to be disturbed. He raised his voice. Who is there? Your pardon, my general, said the voice from outside. You gave orders that I should report to you immediately on my return. Ace looked at the doctor in horror. It was the voice of Lieutenant Hemmings.